Today on American Controversial, an unprovoked NATO strike leaves many dead and injured in Pakistan, creating trouble for relations between the U.S. and Pakistan. What sparked the conflict and what actually happened?
Was the super committee that was supposed to balance the budget a failure? Could there be a shutdown on the way, or worse, another credit downgrade?
Obama went to a pivotal voting state to discuss payroll tax cuts along with the millionaire tax. Can this combination heal the public debt and federal deficit in the long run?
Is the right to redress the government under attack? A Kansas student is ordered to apologize after posting criticizing remarks about the state's funding cuts. Are her remarks protected?
Higher education in America has been assaulted. New York City's higher education system, the CUNY, has approved a tuition hike despite the massive rally. The Davis campus of the University of California also approved a raise in tuition. Why is higher education the priority victim of budget cuts? All this and more coming up on American Controversial.
Something went terribly wrong in Pakistan. An unprovoked strike from NATO leaves Pakistani troops dead and many wounded. This was followed by a series of gunfire attacks. What went wrong, guys?
It's officially just broken. It's pretty bit fresh right now. This actually happened while we were asleep, and it's simply like shocking and surprising how the heck NATO fired at its own allies, and you know, it's a very dangerous area. It's almost nearing Afghanistan, Pakistan.
But can you say that? Can you fault the commanders that were informed that it could possibly be a Taliban connection? They could have taken over the Pakistani base, and then yet they could have infiltrated the attacks. And of course, U.S. has to fire back because they're defending themselves.
We don't actually know what happened right now.
It could be. Because, trust me, the enemy has some very good tactics, you know. Say they can, you know, seize a allied base, and then when that allied base gets attacked, they would, you know, the enemy would twist that and make it look like a friendly fire. But an investigation has just started, and estimated by late December, NATO would come with some form of result of what actually happened.
All we know right now is that helicopters were called in, presumably by Allied or NATO forces under attack. Helicopters were called in, and they fired on Pakistani soldiers.
Exactly.
We know the Pakistani soldiers fired back, and 24 of them are dead. That is currently all we know. Any more than that, whether the NATO troops were fired upon, whether the Pakistani troops fired first, we don't know right now. We just don't know.
Well, let's look at the relations going forward. There has been controversy regarding to U.S. and Pakistani, even going back last year when reportedly an American CIA contractor killed 2 Pakistanis on the streets and an additional person. And even going back a couple years back with WikiLeaks, a statement said by the military of Pakistani that it was offensive to the reputation of the United States.
Yes.
So going forward, where do you think this is going? I know there's a conference, and Pakistan is threatening not to show up to the Bonn conference. What do you feel, Javier?
It's still not known, but it's very confusing right now. It's developing. The investigation is still ongoing.
But do they have the right to be upset?
Oh,
they do have the right to be upset.
Very much
so. This could possibly been some miscommunication that may have led to a friendly fire, but still it's unknown whether there may have been some form of enemy provocation, because the enemies that we fight, they're very good at pointing a finger at someone else. And when that happens, we end up putting the bullets on the wrong people.
Exactly.
Our relationship with Pakistan has gotten worse. I believe now they've stopped all, or NATO supply trucks from getting into Afghanistan, which has made it harder for everyone else trying to get into Afghanistan.
Exactly.
Because a lot of supplies that aren't even remotely related to NATO come through that same highway, and they're all dealing with the same blockade. There's reports of truck drivers having to pay off guards every time the trucks stop. Even if NATO trucks do stop at this checkpoint, trucks have been set on fire at this checkpoint. So they had to move right back to port because they can't guarantee their own safety on the highway.
I do have a question for both of you guys.
Yes.
Do you think Pakistan is secretly being twisted by the Taliban?
Are they being coerced?
Are there some bad apples in that Pakistani government that are, you know, following enemy directions? And is this the reason why we're having a very bad relation with Pakistan?
I don't think it's bad apples. I think we've seen,
because the country's quite corrupt, according to, you know, a lot of think tanks and everything. And when, you know, Pakistan has been sometimes corrupt, and when that happens, the enemy can sneak right in and, you know, twist the minds of many.
The U.S. doesn't even trust.
Thus, souring relations between the West and Pakistan.
They haven't been trusted going back to the 90s. Now, we have yet established a relationship.
We've done nothing to help.
Oh, nothing to help.
Absolutely
exactly.
Nothing.
Exactly. It's about two interests, and the U.S. They're looking to defeat the enemy, and the enemy is Taliban and Al-Qaeda and the Haqqani network. And the one blockade and the one help could be the Pakistani government, but yet they have been upset with our intrusion on bin Laden, and they're offended by us taking control of our bases, of even drone strikes. They've demanded that this needs to stop, because they feel as if they have been disrespected on their homeland, but the UAE is actually preventing them from trying to stop the U.S. stopping from doing their drone base, because it's important that they continue the surge and put the heat on Taliban and Al-Qaeda. How do you feel?
You know, if Pakistan, there has been word, you know, prior to Osama bin Laden's death, that bin Laden was hiding in Pakistan the whole time, and for some reason Pakistan did not know that. And this is why I've been saying, you know, my theory here is there are some very bad apples in Islamabad. And I'm talking about, you know, corrupt politicians. And this is why, you know, this is happening right now. Because if Pakistan knew at all that there are a lot of enemy insurgencies going on in their country, they should have taken swift action and thrown them out in the first place already.
All right. Javier, we'll have to get back to that later. We'll be right back with more on American Controversial.
Don't touch that remote.
America is turning over a new leaf, the Smart Way leaf. Smart Way from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency is changing the way America drives. Look for the Smart Way leaf to help you identify environmentally friendlier cars and trucks. Smart Way certified cars and trucks are more fuel efficient, produce fewer greenhouse gases, and can save you money. And when you're helping the environment, it's a nice reflection on you. Smart Way, because it's time America turned over a new leaf. Follow the leaf. Go to www.epa.gov/smartway.
Welcome back. Has the super committee failed? The team of politicians that were supposed to find a solution on the American budget woes just made the situation uglier, and Obama goes to key voter state Pennsylvania to discuss his payroll tax cut plan. Guys?
Well, the super committee failed. They couldn't reach the deal by the November deadline, and they've had since August, which that's an extraordinary amount of time for 6 people to come into, 12 people, 6 on each side, to come into agreement about something. But I think that given the partisan environment that we live in and the fact that it's an election year, I don't think they had a chance. I don't think they were ever going to find consensus.
Definitely, they didn't stand one chance of finding a consensus in that amount of time, especially with everything that's going on, because everyone's going to stick up for everything that they believe that their group of people need. Because if they see that they're not following through with what they promised for them, we would see that they wouldn't get reelected, and they're just sticking up to protect their jobs.
But did they really did have time, because they were discussing about this even as far as June, because they were yet proposing. Of course, Congressman Paul Ryan was yet unveiled his plan to prosperity, and yet that was yet rejected by the Democrats. But
in the House.
Right now, the middle class, I don't think there's a disconnect in Washington. Politicians and the American people and their constituents.
But we don't know which party is going to get blamed for this yet, though. I mean, the election's still a time away. There's a lot of time for stuff to change. But, Brad, how do you feel about the automatic cuts? Do you think they should go through as they are now with roughly $800 billion over 10 years being cut from our defense. I mean, that's a lot of money to take away from the military.
Exactly. And that was yet, with that, that was yet high key in the sense of it's being cut. That was okay in the sense of the standpoint of we can get relief on defense. But I feel as if, personally, that it doesn't look good at all because there's an uncertainty, even with Europe. And that uncertainty, with even the American people, the taxpayers may have
even with the uncertainty, though, I have to disagree with you. I think the automatic cuts have to stay, though, as much as it may make us unsafe, because if we allow our politicians to not have... It helps us in the short run.
It does help us in the short run.
We don't allow our politicians to have consequences. If we can just say you can vote away these cuts, then what was the whole point of the process?
Exactly. But again, the threat of the payroll tax not being yet extended, that's going to help many millions of Americans.
Adriana, what do you feel about the middle class getting the payroll tax increase?
I feel as if it's not fair to the middle class at all, but we have to see what's going on. But the thing with the military getting so much cut from their budget, I feel as if it makes everything more unsafe and more unstable, because the only reason that people do join the military is because that they have something promised at the end of that. You can work for 20 years and then at the end of that you're going to get your pension. But now everything is unstable and a lot of people won't want to continue doing what they set out to do when it comes to the military.
Exactly.
But now Obama, this is all past us now. The automatic cuts are probably going to go through. Obama went to Pennsylvania this week to discuss supposedly just to discuss his tax plan. But Brad, do you think this is the start of his true campaign on taxpayer dollar?
I thought he was already campaigning. I mean, he made established points while he was making the job plan, his own Obama Jobs Act plan to various key battleground states in Ohio and states like Virginia. He had to make a standpoint that he had to get out of Washington because that was the problem.
That's true.
And when he got out of Washington, he can touch the hands of the American people. He can see that there are roads and there are bridges that are not fixed, even in congressional districts where the highest positions in Republican caucus, especially John Boehner's district, are yet receiving problems. So personally, right now, Obama has been campaigning. He's a great politician. That's what he does, and that's what he wants to do.
Adriana, do you think that it's appropriate for him to be flying around the country when we have so many problems in Washington and that's where the solutions have to be?
I mean, he has to do his campaigning, that's for sure. But leaving so much time away from Washington, I don't think that he should be flying all over the country like he is now. He needs to focus on what the big problem and the big issues are right now, and I don't think he's doing his job as he should be.
I don't think that anything's going to get done until after the election. As much as that hurts America, I mean, people are going into full-on election mode. You're not going to compromise when you're going to go against your voters in a couple months.
The thing is with the elections coming up, the day you start, especially for a president, you start campaigning the day you step into office. And he has completely done a switch from, I guess, depending on what side you're on, he hasn't been doing anything for the past 4 years, and now he is, or he's trying to show an influence. So depending on what side you're on, it's a drastic shift.
He's getting away from Washington, and if Washington is at 9%, regarding to the polls of America.
Thank you, Brad, but we're out of time here. Our next segment is free speech under attack? We'll be right back.
There's just something about being outdoors.
Going hiking. Getting away from everything.
My family camps. We just love it.
Eat, sleep, fish. That's me.
You know, I can't imagine not having this.
But there's this bug. It's killing the trees.
The emerald ash borer beetle has destroyed millions of trees.
It lives in firewood.
You move firewood, you spread the beetle.
To our forests and our neighborhoods.
Help stop the beetle.
Promise you won't move firewood.
I promise not to move firewood.
I promise.
I promise not to move it to our campsite.
Or bring it back home.
I promise.
To burn it where I buy it.
I promise to protect the trees.
I promise. Will you?
Learn more. Go to stopthebeetle.info and promise you won't move firewood.
Hello, I'm Dr. Regina Benjamin, U.S. Surgeon General. Breastfeeding is a preventive measure that can protect babies from illnesses and infections, and there are also health benefits for mothers. While 75% of American mothers start out breastfeeding, only 13% of babies are exclusively breastfed at the end of 6 months. and the rates are much lower for African American infants. Whether you're a grandmother or an employer, you can help make it easier for moms to breastfeed. For more information, please go to surgeongeneral.gov.
Welcome back to American Controversial. Is free speech under attack? A Kansas student was told by the principal to apologize after leaving criticizing remarks to the governor, Sam Brownback. Who is in favor? What do you think about this?
I think that she should not have been criticized as harshly as she was for criticizing the governor. I mean, she's only doing her job as a citizen to observe the people who are supposed to be representing us. And apparently, America doesn't take it the right way, and it's not our fault.
John? It's definitely an overreaction. I mean, I think everyone in the country will agree with that. But I think it's also an overreaction against the governor. I mean, she didn't put up constructive criticism on Twitter. She wrote, "He sucks." That's not a conversation. That's not going to make anything better. And I think that her principal might have been a little overzealous, but he was basically trying to show her that you can't just say whatever you want on Twitter without defending it.
But how was she supposed to know that it was going to be taken that seriously when we post things on Twitter or on social networking sites all the time and it's never noticed by anyone?
It's true. But I feel like, I mean, it's a acceptable double standard, but at the same part, like, teachers are getting, well, I don't want to say like fired, but reprimanded across the country for facing like one seemingly innocent Facebook update, and all of a sudden you're getting fired at your job?
That's teachers. This is a student. This is her time to experience and learn things. I don't think she should have been that harshly criticized.
But there could be repercussions for the school if the school scene is not taking action
easily for its students. And it was when she did tweet it on a school trip. So the school is somewhat responsible for what she does when she's on their grounds or in their bus.
Then the school should have made sure that they had no electronic devices on them, or at least were off. There should have been more security around the school trip, not exactly reprimanding them, because then that's the school's fault for allowing that to happen.
To be fair, you can't really expect any teacher in this day and age to take rid of all electronic devices. I mean, you might as well tell them to just, you know, live under a rock when they go home.
Yeah, that's true.
Definitely, but I think the deeper issue here is that Kansas is not happy with its governor, and I think that's also why a lot of the backlash is coming against his office, because he's not very popular. He's 52% disagree with him. He's going into a rough election cycle. I have to ask, though, is how is this noticed so quickly?
Well, I think it was more or less, it was the funny thing of the day. Like, I hate to say funny, but it was a kind of hilarious situation. Like, almost immediately after she posted this on Twitter, seemingly innocent, she gets forced to apologize. And
I mean, I think what really should come out of this and what we have to question is, are politicians focusing too much on the media and what's being said about them rather than governing? Because apparently the governor has someone full-time looking at all social media about him. That seems very almost Orwellian to me, that you're looking, rather than focusing on, let me get things done and hope the voters will like me for that, let me find all sorts of dissent and look and target it.
Extremely unnecessary. It was one of those cases, no one should be doing this full-time. You should have that person focused on policy decisions so you get reelected. Or at the very least, raise public opinion.
But do you think maybe that at this point that's how you get reelected, is you just quiet the voices calling for you to be pulled down?
Yeah, just make everyone fear you in order to get reelected. It's not exactly the best way of looking at things, but if that's the way you want to go about it, then that's probably the reason why no one likes him. We have to look at it that way.
I don't think it was fear. It was more or less quieting the voices who were making fun of him, like trying to, you know, silence everyone making catcalls from the corner, because I think he's just trying to get the few voices that actually like him to speak a little louder.
Yeah, it's very few, and I don't think anyone would be willing to shout it at any point.
But, I mean, this happens to all politicians. I mean, Obama takes constant flack
all the time
from this. But then the media, some media, has also come very quickly to defend him. And many people also tried to deflect some of his criticism. Oh, you're just being racist. Or it's because he's from Hawaii, or some variation of that. Do you think that politicians have just become too, not thin-skinned, but they just don't take criticism as well as they used to?
Yeah, it's because I feel like they think that they're so high up that no one should touch them, in a way. And that's not how it works. Our job is to look at politicians and criticize them. If you don't like what we're saying, then try to adjust what you're doing in order for us to approve you.
To be fair, back to John's point, constructive criticism is one thing, and just...
I was actually about to say that criticism's one thing, but just name-calling, just saying that you're terrible at your job, that you're... Some people have come out and said Obama's the Antichrist. That's not constructive.
It's too much.
That's not helping.
It's just too much.
That just divides people, and I think that's why we're in a lot of the mess we are in today.
Of course.
That is true. Well, I just really think that something as "you suck" should not be taken to that scale. It may not be constructive criticism, but then again, this is a young girl we're talking about. It's not someone who has their full state of mind quite developed yet. It's something that we have to step back and look at. The principal was right in having her, I guess, pointed out in front of everyone, don't do this anymore, but not directly needing to apologize to the governor if that's her belief.
Understandable.
She should have the right to say whatever she feels.
I understand. We'll be right back with more on American Controversial.
Hi, I'm Mia Hamm. As a professional soccer player and a future soccer mom, I know how fun and rewarding sports can be. I also know how frustrating it is when you're sidelined by an injury. So I've teamed up with the American Association of Orthodontists to ask young athletes to play it safe when playing sports. I spent years training to become a world-class athlete. I know what it takes to become an expert on the field. Orthodontists understand this too. They're experts in their field, helping kids and adults obtain healthy, beautiful smiles. They want to help athletes prevent injuries and stay in the game. It only takes a second to get hurt, and too many athletes are risking injury because they're not properly equipped during games and practices. Wear the right protective gear, like mouth guards, face masks, and helmets. Your first line of defense against preventable injuries. Play it safe, achieve your goals, and keep smiling. Visit braces.org.
Welcome back to American Controversial. State and municipal budgets have gone sour and higher education pays the price. New York City and Davis, California have approved stiff hikes in tuition despite a series of student rallies. Why does government purposely provoke academia with cuts when budgets go bad? Guys?
I mean, I hate to see education get cut first of all the things. You know, why don't we just sacrifice our future to pay for everything now? It depresses me to see education being the first thing that gets cut. I mean, it's not like it's happening across the board, but it's just sad to see. And such a great public education system in California, just, oh, tuition hikes across the board.
But Christian, California doesn't have a great system because for years they've been passing law after law saying low tuition, without having a way to pay for things. And you're right, things have suddenly gone bad, the economy went south, and now the whole house of cards comes down. And this was something that could have been avoided. Education has to be paid for.
Of course.
And now the government can't do it, so now the students have to pay for it.
But don't you think we're paying way too much on higher education?
I think it depends on where you go for higher education. Some schools, yes, I think they're too much. But I think most state schools are still very affordable.
Because don't you think there's paying too much and there's overpaid? Look at how much student debt we are racking up right now. And that's because we have no other choice but to borrow enormous amounts of money, not just from, direct loans, but private banks, because our scholarships and grants cannot cover that. And when we graduate, look how much we racked up, $20,000, $30,000 in debt plus interest. And then don't forget, with the bad job market,
the job market's going to get better. And I'm going to be first and foremost.
For now, it's still bad right now.
Education is a privilege. It's not a right. You're not entitled to college.
How is it a privilege?
Because it has to be paid for. You're not entitled to a free college education.
But don't you think people have the right to an affordable education? Look at in other parts of the world. People have to pay for, other forms of education, not just higher education, but like, say, high school, elementary school. I don't take this education system for granted here.
Well, no one's taking it for granted. Christian, what do you think?
I mean, to be fair, I think, free public education ends at the end of high school, at least in this country.
At least affordable.
And as soon as you get a diploma, that's it.
I think most state schools still are affordable. I mean, in New York, for example, you have to pay $500 more a year. You think that's unreasonable to keep the school soluble?
Well, New York City is not that of a place where people have higher income. New York City is not just Manhattan, it's 5 boroughs. Don't forget, a majority of the people who live in New York City are people that are struggling right now.
But if you're smart and if you work hard, you will get scholarships. What this really affects is the average student, which I hate to say this, but times are tough. Sometimes if you're getting C's in high school, we just can't afford to send you to college anymore.
It's true.
Because don't forget another option.
In general, the junior colleges have been slapped much harder than the state schools.
Well, all across the board, budget cuts have hit education. But I think honestly, it's because education is so entrenched. I mean, Why don't we look at other options for keeping tuition low? Why don't teachers take a 1% pay cut across the board, from top to bottom?
Yeah, but when the budget cuts happen, you know what? It's more than just a pay cut. The colleges get slapped with layoffs, and that's not good in some areas.
You have a point, I'm assuming?
I mean, I hate to see, like, I know teachers taking a pay cut. I mean, at some point, like pensions and tenure system, yes, you know, maybe you don't deserve, but current salary, most professors don't get paid like exorbitant amounts.
They're making more than average. And administrators, that's where the real waste comes in, is you have dean after dean after dean.
That's the easiest place to cut away the waste.
Associate deans. I mean,
easiest place.
Our school, for example, has, most colleges have 4 or 5 associate deans on top of the head dean. Do we really need that?
The bureaucracy. I agree completely.
Javier?
That's one thing I do agree. Yes, there is some bureaucracy going on in certain areas of academia here in the U.S. But also, you know, that's probably a good idea, consolidation. But still, with inflation, tuition goes up. It's
inflation
not a big
inflation isn't something that's not there. Inflation is present in everything. Everything goes up.
You know,
as time
the reason
goes on.
why these ridiculous hikes happen is because we don't have a proper educational reform. These students are going to remember in November, and you know,
well, students
if Obama says
students don't vote. I think that, Javier, I think that undermines your point, is that students don't vote. And if you're not voting, then why would representation vote?
I know that not all
that
students vote, but there are some out there who are ready to, you know, go out and throw out the politicians who are creating this trouble with education.
It's never been enough to be an actual voting bloc like Students for Obama. We've never really influenced any kind of an election. It's just been, oh, you know, students get out the vote, and then maybe like 35, 40% of students will vote, and the older you get, the more people vote. That's where the real voting power is. Students have never been united enough to vote together.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, what matters is you have to pay your bills. And if we look at California, California has written off for years. We'll pay next month, we'll pay next year, we'll keep things cheap. And by doing that, now it all catches up. And that's why I think you see such a dramatic spike, where rather it should have been going up over time, as you said, for inflation. We just have straight to the top, but we have to pay for it. And I think that teachers we need to take a serious look at teachers and how much they're making. No, but Javier, what do you think? Do you think teachers are making too much?
Yes, that's a good point here with salaries, because sometimes you do not know when tuition goes up, also some salaries go up, and yeah, we do have to look at the budget too. You know, we have to grow a spine and say, you know what, we have to, you know, be a little frugal here, because if we're going to have to raise tuition, we have to use that tuition money for you know, beneficial things, not, you know, to create more waste.
Very good, but we'll have to get back to that for another week. And that's it for our program. Stay tuned for our live episode later tonight at 10. Have more information on or political news tip? Send us a tweet at the address at the bottom of the screen, ACWPTV6, or send us an email as well, AmericanControversial6@yahoo.com. Remember, whether it's from Patterson City Hall or around the world, it's always controversial in America. Good night.